better than the way it did smell.
So here we are again, kind of a early, 1 minute early, so you get a behind the scenes look
Oh my lordy.
at Law and Disorder, or as we like to say, AJ's Law and Disorder. So, but I started this early because there's this chemistry, it's not always there when you're on the air, but off the air, look, we're really buds.
Yeah, we really are. Oh, we really are.
Oh, we are.
We are. We hang out.
We've been
We have lunch.
accused.
Ken's coming to my yoga class on Monday at 11 a.m. at Sun Yoga. Ken's coming to my yoga, and he did much better this week.
It's time to go live, I guess, everywhere now.
Okay.
All right. All right, so
What was this?
that's how you warm up before you go to bat.
Okay.
All right, so
All
here
right.
we are.
Welcome to Ken Goldberg's Law and Disorder with Ken Goldberg. Yay! And me, AJ, Amy Jo Kroll, AJ. And Ken is an attorney in 3 different states and a Jewish former ordained Buddhist monk. I never thought I'd be saying that my entire life in one sentence, but
Oh, there's so much more to that.
I
though.
know. And yes, owned many questionable businesses. Controversial, I should say, not questionable businesses.
Yeah,
Controversial. Your businesses were never questionable. They were just
No,
controversial.
I'm very above board, Ken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Controversial businesses. And yeah. And I have Dallas Yoga Magazine and Cosmic Yogi Festival coming up. And Ken and I have our t-shirts on today. We really sort of did not plan this. So it was quite funny when he opened the door and we had the same t-shirt on. He wanted to change, but I wouldn't let him.
Oh, look,
Yes.
Ajahn Chai has just joined us.
Yay.
Hi, Ajahn. I hope you're feeling better.
Oh,
He hasn't. He's been in the hospital. I just
Oh.
found out. So,
well, good. We'll entertain him for a little
Sawadikra.
while.
So, and Aaron and Kathy and Sergio and Ray Dean. So,
Yes.
let's get on with the show.
We are on.
All right.
Lots of stuff today.
We bantered before the show last
Wait,
time.
our
'cause-
banter is immature, remember?
So, listen, politically, I should wear ears, but she only bought enough for her.
Oh, that's so crap.
So
That's
listen,
I bought them for him too. He won't wear them.
what you brought?
You have the other pair.
They
of
broke a
cat-
long
the
time
pink
ago.
cat ears still aren't broken.
Next week.
But look at my cute little unicorn.
So,
Mhm.
so listen, we try to walk this tightrope politically. We try not
Really?
to.
You try to walk a tightrope.
I think I've done a very good job.
I know of 2 where you flipped off Trump and
What-
said naughty
but,
things.
but we have an hour show. I do that at like for 1 second.
But that's
I
not walking
think-
the tightrope.
No, I think it is. I could spend the entire hour talking about.
So you just dip your toe over the
Politics.
edge.
I'm just to get expressive at times.
Okay, he
For
gets
a moment,
expressive.
okay?
Okay.
So, fragile manhood. So, I carry a gun. That's how fragile my manhood is, right? So, if you can tell a guy's size by the size of his gun, I'm in trouble. Carry a small gun.
Oh.
So, speaking of guns
yes.
and politics, that's where I wanted to start the show.
Oh,
Okay, it's not something I even clued you in on.
I
in
know.
advance.
And we've talked 3 weeks in a row now about guns and politics.
Well, it keeps unfolding.
Okay, let's
And-
hear some more.
All right. Well, you know that Beto O'Rourke is saying that he wants to make the purchase of a buyback, a mandatory buyback of AR-15s.
Okay.
So, and there's been a lot of discussion about this, and I haven't said a lot, but I've had friends ask me about it. Ginny asked me the other day about weren't AR-15s banned? Because if you look in the news, you'll see headlines that, about the AR-15 having been banned at one time. So, so I want to say this.
Yes.
Okay. I don't agree with Beto.
Okay.
Okay. Does that make
Surprise.
me, so it's a stupid idea. It's not going to work.
Well, I don't
People
think
go,
people
well,
are going to run out and say, "Here, take my guns."
so it worked in New Zealand, or it appears to have worked in New Zealand, because they don't have the same constitution we have. They don't have the same form of government we have, right? Okay. And it worked in the UK to a large extent, but again, they don't have our rules of law. So you can't just do this. But let's pretend you could.
Okay.
Okay, let's pretend you could create a mandatory buyback. You know darn well a lot of people are never going to submit. And I've tried to caution Democrats for years that you need to stop raising money for the NRA. Hillary was the number one fundraiser for the NRA when she was running, because every time she said, we're going to take on the NRA, Democrats didn't get out and write her a check. Republicans got out and wrote the NRA a check.
Gotcha.
So she
Yeah, I was waiting for that to follow through there.
she
There we
was
go.
a
It came along.
tremendous fundraiser
Mhm.
for the NRA.
Gotcha.
And Obama did wonders for the gun industry, but he wasn't so purposeful. Beto O'Rourke, where does he think where's the political cachet? Lots of people like myself, moderate in this regard, are willing to see something. You could even ban AR-15s as far as I'm concerned, but you're not going to have a mandatory buyback. It's
Well,
not
the
going
people aren't going to turn them in.
and so all you're doing is, and there was a pundit on one of the channels today said, you're just fueling the other side because they're
Right, I
getting
agree
jacked. They're getting jacked. The Democrats are not getting jacked. I mean, they just don't get fired up. In fact, I was watching the Corey Lewandowski today, and you would have thought a group of amateurs got together and decided to do a skit. When you take somebody like Corey Lewandowski and you know who he is, and you know he's not stupid, and you know he's ruthless, then when you talk to him, you have to box him in. And you have to keep him boxed in, because if you give him a chance to talk, he's going to talk and he's going to send out his message, or in this case, the president's message. So they were trying to cross-examine him. Well, they're trying to examine him. When you cross-examine a hostile witness, you have to tailor your questions so that the only answer can be yes or no.
Correct.
And you're supposed to know whether the answer is yes or no, because he should not be allowed to testify because he's a hostile witness. So the Congress people, or the senators, I forget he was in front of senators, they have to be the ones really testifying. And some of them did that.
Right.
But others just, got themselves hung to the wall. So if you are a anti-gun or pro-gun control Democrat, liberal, please don't jump on that Beto wagon. I mean, if you like Beto, that's fine. He ain't going nowhere. He ain't got the legs, but I'm Mayor Pete. Mayor Pete.
Mayor Pete?
Gay, military veteran, young, smart as a whip. Dude is on it, man. And I'm with him. I already made my contribution. Financial.
I caught on.
Yeah. So, okay, on with the show. We did open up with a little political commentary.
Okay, thank you for the political
Un
commentary.
poquito.
Okay.
All right. So,
Un poquito.
Poquito.
Yeah.
A little. So Aaron says, proof. Does he want me to whip it out? It's in the other room. What's that movie?
I'm sitting next to him. Let's not use that phrase
that
while I'm
where's
sitting
what's
next
that
to
movie
him.
where,
Let's not.
me.
Let's
I
keep
know.
it all intact over
Wasn't
there.
it Blazing Saddles where the actor said, "Excuse me while I whip it out"?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Right? Oh, it's good. It was good. So, so 3 deceased individuals, juveniles. Okay, 2 16-year-olds and 1 15-year-old were shot dead trying to break into a home in Georgia.
I got real confused on this because it said they were in the front yard, then it said they were trying to break in. I got confused on this.
Right. It says they attempted to rob 3 people in the front yard.
There you go.
So they weren't trying to break in.
Yeah, that's what that got me confused.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
So attempted robbery. Okay, the other one would be attempted burglary. And they don't know how these guys got shot, right? They're saying nobody's been arrested.
Well, they're saying there were two guns and that both of them were fired and they don't know who shot who. And anyway,
So I'm ready.
it said the handgun fired first, according to the witnesses. And then, of course, then the other one was automatic.
Says there was somebody heard an assault rifle, but I don't see where it says they found an assault rifle.
Mhm.
I just thought I'd throw that one out because it's brand new news. Okay. No, I mean I throw it
Okay,
into
but
the
I have a
show.
question. So if they're pulling that what is it? The Zimmerman case from that.
Yeah, because
So-
stand your ground.
Right,
So
stand your ground.
if
So
the Georgia landowner or whoever lived there,
right. And it was even if it's in his front yard,
yeah.
that would be stand your ground.
Well, because they said, hi Cara, they said that they were attempting to rob them. So yes, it wouldn't matter where they were. They
Okay.
could have been in downtown Atlanta.
Okay.
If there's an attempted armed robbery, then you can use deadly force to thwart it.
Okay.
So the stand your ground really is kind of irrelevant. Stand your ground should be used. So I perceive a threat, but the threat may not be as obvious to everybody. That really should be
Oh.
the stand your ground, because you can't mandate that somebody retreat from deadly force.
Okay.
It's not, you could legislate it, it wouldn't work before
Right.
a jury,
Yeah.
right? So you can say, well, shouldn't you have retreated? So when I used to teach firearms, I used to teach a lot of it. I used to tell people, and this was kind of, here's the routine. First thing you did, somebody's threatening you, and I've had this.
Mhm.
Literally, somebody standing not that close, telling you, I'll kick your ass.
Right.
And so I used to train people, put your hand up. This is a universal symbol for stop.
Okay.
Even if you go to
That makes
Japan,
sense.
Germany,
Absolutely.
and then you say loudly, stop, stay back, but they're not listening. They're in a rage. They keep coming. So then you have to place your hand on your firearm, stop.
Gotcha.
If there are objective bystanders, not your mother, not
Right,
your
right, right.
friends, you want them to hear you telling this person to stop. You can, what they call, bring the gun to the low ready position. That means it's face downward, but you have control of it.
Gotcha.
They keep coming. Final command, stop. They don't do it, you shoot. And people like, well, are you allowed to do that? What if he wasn't armed?
It doesn't matter. It's a threat. It's him.
Right, he's threatening to hurt me
Right.
with
Right.
great bodily
It doesn't
harm.
matter
So,
if he has
under
his
the
weapons in his hands
definition,
or whatever.
yeah. So, and I tell people, listen, the jury's going to go back in the jury room after the trial, and here's what the conversation you want them to have. You want them to say about the deceased,
Mm-hmm.
crazy guy needed killing. Did you see the evidence? That guy tried to told him,
Right.
I'll shoot you.
Right,
He
right.
kept coming. Who would do that but a crazy person?
Right.
Who would run up on a guy with a gun for still threatening him?
Right.
So you have to change the story
Got you.
from,
That's very interesting.
I'm really
That
a good
was
lawyer.
that was quite interesting. Okay.
And that neutralizes
I will
the
remember
whole,
this.
and this neutralizes the whole element of, now you got to have a good attorney. This neutralizes the whole element of, well, was that person capable of, I took a class in Arizona
Mm-hmm.
for the concealed handgun, and there was this kid sitting next to me, and he was wearing 2 pagers back when people still carried pagers, right? And the teacher's teaching. He's a former federal agent, and he's telling us, unless you're meeting deadly force, you shouldn't draw your weapon. And Ken in the back of the room,
Yes.
excuse me, is that the law or is that your opinion? It's my opinion. Okay, so you understand that's just opinion. The law doesn't say the other person has to have a gun or a baseball
Right.
bat in their hand. So the guy next to me, he's actually on this side of me, my left side, and he glances over me with disdain, right?
Okay.
And says, what, are you going to kill somebody in a bar fight? I said, yes. So afterwards, during the break, I turned to him and I said, listen, and this kid was like wide and young. And I said, if I were you and somebody's messing with me in a bar, I might just whoop them, right? But I said, I'm older than you. My shoulders are both bad. I can't really, I'm going to shoot him. And he said, oh, well, that makes sense. And he calmed down and he didn't look at me with disdain anymore. Okay.
This one says, At what point are you able to stand your ground and where? Georgia.
Well, we don't know Georgia law, but I'm saying that what I'm talking about is common law. In other words, in any state,
Okay.
I mean, now England's different.
Okay.
England's much tougher about the kind of stand your ground. They don't allow you to shoot somebody in your home unless circumstance. I know. See, here you shoot somebody in your home, it's a freebie.
Well, if somebody's breaking in my house or even inside, yeah, aren't you supposed to yell, "I have a gun, leave"?
No,
But isn't that a good thing to do?
I suppose.
Will
as
it
long
help
as
them leave, you think? Because
maybe
my object is not to shoot them. But if you know, like you're saying, stop, and the guy's coming to, what else are you going to do? Let him kill you?
no.
Exactly.
No. So in Texas and most states, if you're in your home, the rules are completely different in almost every state.
Okay.
If somebody has entered your home
Mm-hmm.
illegally
Mm-hmm.
with the intent to harm or steal,
Mm-hmm.
you can usually dispatch them with deadly force.
Okay.
Okay? And you don't
I
have
still
to.
would shout, "I
you
have
don't-
a gun, leave." And if they
Yeah.
don't, then I'm sorry.
Well, I'll tell you something, and anecdotally, guys used to come in my store all the time, and they wanted for personal protection by your bedside. A lot of people say, "Well, I keep a shotgun,
Yeah, I know people who do
a
that.
pump action
Yeah,
shotgun,"
I know who do that.
and
Because they hear it.
and here's the rationale:
Mhm.
they'll hear that, and I'm like, so a couple of flaws with that
Right.
plan. First off, you do this, and then you hear two more in the other room.
Right, exactly.
You're one to their two.
Right,
And you've just told them where you are
right.
and what you got. Another thing, a shotgun, when you rack it, one of two things. Either you've just loaded an unloaded shotgun, and why did you have an unloaded shotgun? Or you just threw out a bullet, a cartridge, just before you went to a gunfight.
Right.
Because when you rack it,
It
you're
pops out.
ejecting.
Yeah. it
Right.
pops out.
So here I am. Most shotguns carry very few loads, right? It's not a time to get rid of.
No, you're right. I agree.
So they're like, I say, okay, so you
I don't have
rack
a
it,
shotgun.
and people hear that. I say, if that's what you want to do, get your handgun and a tape layer. You know?
And push the button.
Yeah. Make it sound like it's doing
But
something.
they're still gonna know where you are.
Yeah, but at least, you know.
But I would yell,
if
"I
some-
have a gun, leave."
I've done that.
See?
I've yelled that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been broke into
Oh,
3,
you're the
4
wrong
times.
house to be broken into.
Well, but I have been, and I always was armed, even in Chicago, and that wasn't kosher. But so, speaking of Chicago, are we done with the present topic? Listen, let me finish up about stand your ground. Stand your ground's an ambiguity. So, Texas used to have a reasonable man should retreat.
Mhm.
What is the reasonable man going to do? If somebody's coming at me, there's only two ways to retreat. One is to run backwards and risk falling over a fire hydrant and getting your
Right.
ass kicked or killed, or turning
Run,
around and
run.
turning your back to the threat
Okay.
and running. I'm not a big fan of either of those from a tactical point of view. From a tactical point of view, you should get to cover if they have any kind of serious weapon, a gun or something. You should get to cover, and
Mhm.
So I was not in, and I had police tell me, well, you can't pull a gun if the other guy doesn't have a gun. But I also had police tell me you can't use that kind of a cartridge in your weapon. I'm like, well, you're wrong. I know a lot about the law.
Okay.
Speaking of Chicago, we said we were going to talk about this preliminarily. I said,
This
Wow.
was very complicated, and
I know, but we have
so
been.
you have to make it simplistic here.
Well, we have been discussing this topic, and this is a brand new article
Yes.
that came out in the Chicago Tribune. $213 million has been spent by the city of Chicago to pay private lawyers to defend police misconduct cases. That's since 2004. So in the last 15 years, they spent $213 million in legal fees.
Not 21.3,
And 13 million.
$213 million.
And says
And
here,
a lot of them are from case officers who already have misconduct backgrounds.
right. So we have talked about John Burge,
Mhm.
Lieutenant John Burge,
Yes.
on the show.
Ridiculous.
We
Yeah.
talked about he's the one that was authorizing or personally putting car battery connectors
Right.
on people's testicles,
Yeah.
genitals, and okay, to get confessions. He was a lowlife, and a lot of the guys that worked under him. He subsequently went to prison. He's dead. He died about a year ago. As a result of him, I told you, they have a torture commission
Uh-huh.
in Chicago. They're still trying to figure out how many people in prison were tortured.
Right.
And so they had to create a commission to keep hearing these cases from guys who are usually still in prison, because this was a homicide division.
Right.
Yeah. So,
So do they have to go through every single one of his cases and the guys who worked for him's cases?
yeah, to some degree they did that, but really what they're doing now is they're relying on people to come forward and say, I was tortured.
Right.
And I've told you all that I practiced with Candace Gorman at one time in Chicago, and she just got a $22 million verdict because of police misconduct in a case where some guys did 15 years because some other detectives framed them.
Wow.
So
I wondered if they even knew that the other detective had framed them.
did who know?
Okay, repeat what you just said.
So two guys were a number of guys. Let me explain this. Chicago's got 22 police districts.
Okay.
Okay. And then it's got 5 areas.
Okay.
The areas where detectives' offices are located. Could be in area 6 too. So it's been a long time since I've been there, at least involved in that. So your division, your area, you got your burglary detectives, homicide detectives, violent crimes, whatever. You got, and they operate out of a area which covers multiple precincts.
Okay.
So these guys that Candace went after, they were out of a place on the far south side of Chicago. These were detectives, and I don't know what division they were in.
Okay.
John Burge was homicide lieutenant in the middle of the south side, and he was homicide. Okay. So we got another guy who's mentioned here. We'll get him. So it says that 3 firms alone billed the city for more than 21,000 hours of legal work over 6 years, and at least 17 outside attorneys were representing the city or the police in federal court. And they mentioned that there's this detective, Ronaldo Guevara, and some other officers. It came about that they manipulated a 12-year-old boy into identifying a suspect.
I want to figure some math out here. Now.
Okay. And this was pretty common, where the police would do a lineup, but they would fix it so you'd get picked out. And I had such a case because, for instance, when you're looking at the photos, my guy was the only one in the lineup didn't have a shirt on. So you stick out. Everybody's supposed to have some similarity.
Right.
And nobody's supposed to have anything that is significantly distinguishable from the others. So you don't have 5 blondes and 1 dark-haired guy, right?
Right.
When I was in a lineup back in the day, they brought me in for questioning. Well, actually, they brought me in and booked me for burglary. And as part of that process, they decided to do a lineup. So they take me to the room where they're going to do the lineup. And I've never been in a lineup, right?
Okay.
I'm 25 years old. So I'm standing there and they're bringing up guys. They to do a lineup, they go down to the lockup.
Right.
Downstairs, and they're bringing up guys.
Right.
And they bring up a white guy and they said, what are we going to do with him? Send him back. It was me and all Mexican guys because I dark haired then.
Oh, okay.
Very dark hair, dark complexion. So now there's 5 of us. That's how many are in a lineup. And the detective walks in and he says, where do you want to stand? So I said, I think I'll stay here in the middle. And this other guy says, I want perfect English. And the detective says, I didn't ask you, right? And he turns around and walks out. And this guy looks at me and says, oh, this is your party.
Ah,
So,
that's funny.
so there I was in a lineup. Years later, on my first homicide case, I immediately noticed when they gave me the photos of the lineup that they had conducted that my guy was the only one without a shirt. And in the other, they did another lineup, and he was wearing a shirt, but he was about 6 inches taller, shorter than most of the other guys. So the judge said, "This is a suspect lineup.
Oh,
I'm going to
interesting.
let you introduce it, but I think you're going to have some problems." My client chose to waive a jury, which was turned out to be smart.
I want to
So-
figure something out here. So,
so,
how many billable hours?
21,200.
Okay, so how many?
Doesn't say how much they charge. That's just that.
No, but say there's 364 days in a year
Oh, you want to know how
times
many?
24 hours in a day, right? That's 8,700 in a year, and they billed 21,000.
Over 6 years. So multiple lawyers probably were working on it, right?
God, yes,
So
that's a lot.
so you got and so I'm working on this homicide case. I'm defending this kid. He didn't do it, by the way.
Mhm.
And one of the main witnesses against him, who had fingered him, said
Right.
that kid did it. So my investigator found him in jail, by the way, for completely
Are you
separate
serious?
charges.
Okay, well that was
This
good
is
for
very
you,
common.
wasn't it?
Very common.
Can you bring that up in court?
Yeah, but since we waived a jury, he came out in a jumpsuit, an orange jumpsuit,
Oh,
anyways.
God.
But so my investigator met with him and he said, "Listen, man, I know the kid. I didn't have anything against him, but they held me for 24 hours first, and they accused me. So you damn Skippy, I picked somebody else out. And then the second person to pick him out was this guy's sister. So we interview her, and she says, well, I got down to the police station. They put me in a room with my brother, who I hadn't seen for a day. And he said, I picked out Bradley.
Oh my God.
So she picked out Bradley. They didn't call her to the witness stand. They brought him in, but the judge said
Oh
he
my
had
God,
no
that's
credibility.
awful.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, I have firsthand experience of how this system works and how they will set it up so somebody gets nailed.
Oh wow.
So they say over the last 15 years, fees and costs for private attorneys in civil rights cases totaled $213 million. Last year, the city spent $30.1 million. And it says that's more than twice what is spent on the agency that is empowered to investigate police conduct
Right.
or misconduct.
So they're spending what? How much more is that? Oh my God.
They're spending $15 million more just on legal fees.
Right.
This is not the outcomes of the cases because
Right.
you read this article
Right.
and I posted the article somewhere online. A lot of these they lost the case
Right.
for tens of millions of dollars sometimes.
And they would have settled at the very beginning on the thing.
If I know
Yeah.
so many times lawyers who have been involved in cases where listen, my client would have took $2 million, right?
Right.
That sounds like a lot of money to somebody who lives in the inner city and has been shot or whatever it is.
Right.
You know, it's a misconduct case, and they fight and they fight. In Candace's case, I don't think she expected. She wasn't looking for $22 million. The guy spent 15 years in prison. I'm sure they could have got away with a lot less. Now they're still fighting. They're still spending money. They're using city attorneys, but in the same article, it says that some of these attorneys for the city, the ones that work for the city,
Right.
got in trouble with the federal courts, with the appellate judges when they looked at the case and went, oh no.
They weren't given all the
Yeah,
evidence
you
and
guys were
everything.
withheld stuff
Yeah.
during that civil trial. We're going to give them another shot at this. And that's what happened with Candace. They withheld information.
Right. I remember you
talked
telling
about
me
it,
that. Yeah.
So they didn't tell them that they cut a deal with one of the people that testified. And then she found out he had 7 years left on his sentence. He was in prison. And
Yeah,
she
my
found out
goodness.
3 weeks after the trial ended that somebody saw him in the street. And when she looked, he had been early paroled. She went right to the judge and said, I asked on the stand if you made any kind of deal with the
Right.
government.
They lied.
Yeah. So the judge found out, said, yeah, I'm going to give you a new trial. And she won that one.
Good.
All right. So it's just the point of this. It's a long article.
It is.
Yeah. The city has spent, since 2004, the city has spent 757 million in settlements. That's not.
That doesn't include the
I'm
legal
sorry.
fee.
It does. It's losses of trial and other payouts. No,
It does include the legal fee.
It does
Okay,
not. No,
okay.
no. It includes settlements or trials. I didn't know if
Okay.
it includes trials. So, but that also includes car crash claims against police officers, racial discrimination, sexual harassment.
That's a lot of money.
Yes, yes. So the reason I brought this up today is
That would
People-
change a school system in any city.
people don't understand the cost of police misconduct a lot of times. It seems like, oh, somebody spent time in prison. Oh, poor him, play the violin, and then they move on. It's your pocketbook, babe. If it's your town, and in Dallas, we'll go through it, has been going through it. Every major city is going through police misconduct cases, which are costing millions of dollars. Now, all cities don't use private attorneys like Chicago
Right.
does. Chicago's all kinds of clout, and anyways, it went on and on and on. And it turns out the law department, which is supposed to defend the city against any claims,
Right.
civil rights claims or any civil claims, has 40 lawyers.
But they were too busy.
Yeah, and it talks about John Burge. It talks about this detective who, every time he gets called in a civil case to be examined about his
Mhm.
participation in framing people, doesn't want to admit to it
Right.
because,
Pleads the fifth.
right,
Hmm.
if you plead the fifth in a criminal case,
Uh-huh.
it cannot be used against you as evidence of guilt.
Okay.
It is not allowed to be used because you have a right to remain silent. A civil case, you do not have a right to remain
That's right. I
silent.
got confused in
So
there.
if you
Okay,
invoke
that's
the
it.
Fifth Amendment, which these
Okay.
detectives are doing, lots of them are doing, the judge can instruct the jury that is indicia of guilt.
Right. Okay.
So
That's interesting. Okay.
the city's caught between a rock and a hard place. They're trying to defend these, but the primary, I don't know what you call him. He's not a victim. The primary witness
There you go.
that could help the city's case isn't going to say anything because, especially since John Burge went to prison, not for beating people and
Mhm.
torturing them. He went to prison because when they sued him in civil court, he took the stand and lied and said, I never tortured anybody. And the feds got that evidence, said, oh, we could prove
Right,
you tortured. We couldn't get you because
Wow,
the
no way. I mean, like what? He was obviously advised to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Well, I guess he thought I don't know why, because actually, had he admitted it, they still could not have prosecuted him.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. I
Yeah.
just don't get why he did that.
Got
I
me.
don't either.
All right. So
Ignorant.
we got 2 more legal cases, and then we're going to talk about senior citizens today.
I know.
All right. So
It was very
Los,
sad.
it was. Well, we'll get to it.
I'll
Happy
be your
Nelson.
friend,
Happy
don't
says to
worry.
tell the truth. Is one of us.
I'd say
inclined-
that's what I said. I mean, why at that point? I mean, he's going to get caught.
Well, he said that some time ago. I don't know what he's referring to.
I don't know
I think he's telling you to tell the truth
about what.
because he knows how you prevaricate.
You're so full of it. Happy loves me.
All right. So Los Angeles Police Department
Oh, okay.
decided to spy using informants on a anti-Trump group.
Oh yeah, this is bad.
So this was a relatively peaceful group that disliked Trump, and they were going to hold a demonstration. I think the 1-year anniversary of the election.
Yeah.
And so they planted an informant in the group, and that's and they were meeting in churches and stuff.
Right.
So, and schools.
I think the worst thing
hospitals,
that,
law
that this
offices.
group actually did was they laid down in the street or something and blocked traffic. And that was the worst thing this group had ever done in this area. So
when they got to some trials, it came out that there had been an informant involved because nobody knew that.
mhm.
And so now it's raised the real issue of like, what are you doing?
Right.
Because police spying on legal groups ever since the 60s when you had red squads
Mhm.
going around infiltrating and a lot of them were stirring up trouble so they'd have something to tell
Exactly.
their handlers,
Exactly.
right? Well, so yeah, so they did some laying down protests, but there was no indicia before, during, or after that they had intended any violence or crimes,
Right.
any violent crimes. So the police chief made this declaration that from now on, he's saying it was perfectly legal and it was within policy, but from now on, going forward, they're going to have to get my permission. I'm going to have to okay this
I'm
stuff.
still going to okay it, but they're going to have to get my permission.
That's what the civil rights groups are saying. Like, that's really feeble.
Yeah, it really is.
So, yeah, who would trust the LAPD? I mean, the Rampart was the Rampart scandal was the LAPD. That was more wayward cops who were robbing, if I recall correctly, they were robbing drug dealers and keeping the money and drugs for themselves. Oh yeah,
And
that
the
was a big
drugs.
scandal.
All right.
Every New York, LA, New Orleans, Chicago, Miami. I don't know how many others have had major scandals, police scandals involving. I mean,
Well, there's
in
bad people in every area.
Chicago had what's called the Special Operations Group. So they were not detectives. They were between police patrolmen and detective. They operated as an elite group. Well, they were robbing drug dealers.
Oh my God.
So one of them flipped. I don't know if he got caught and decided to flip. And one of the heads of the Special Operations Group decides to have him murdered to keep him from being able to flip on them.
Okay.
He got caught. The guy's okay. He didn't get killed, but the other guy did get caught, but they had to disband.
Wow.
They had to disband the entire unit because of the scandal of all this stuff they were doing, robbing, selling drugs. It was
Oh my Lord.
incredible.
But I think that just a person, I don't know. I mean, like, who are we to say? I mean, if you're making $50,000 a year right now as a cop, you've been working there 5 years, and all of a sudden you're exposed to all this money that you probably are going to be able to get away with taking. I can understand why people would have issues.
And I can understand why they go to prison.
Yeah.
Yep. So the last legal one we have before we go on to this non-legal case is that this Native American was convicted.
Oh, I can't wait to hear your part of this. Okay.
In 2003.
Mm-hmm.
We have special rules regarding Native Americans and the criminal justice system. In this case, after he was arrested, two of them were arrested. One was still a juvenile, as I recall. This guy was only 20. It was kind of a heinous crime.
It was beyond kind of.
Yeah.
It was horrific.
I know so many heinous crimes.
Okay, but this is. I mean, he killed a mother and their daughter.
Right.
He murdered them by stabbing them to death.
It was actually
repeatedly.
Wasn't it grandmother and granddaughter?
I don't know, but he stabbed him repeatedly.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people
That's horrific.
Die.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not minimizing. I'm just saying.
I'm just sharing with everybody really what the crime was, because I think that's.
So the Fed stepped in. It was on tribal land, and I don't know the law of tribal land. I don't know if he would have normally been tried in the state court, a tribal court, or what. But the Fed said, "Hey, this is federal jurisdiction. He committed this one type of crime in this right kind of place. So we've got jurisdiction, scoop him up and put him in the federal system." So as a part of his prosecution, the prosecutor, the victims, and the tribe said, we do not want them to seek the death penalty.
Right.
John Ashcroft, who was the Attorney General for the United States at the time, said, "Pooh, we're gonna seek the death penalty anyways," and they got it. 20 years later,
which was like really sort of weird that happened, right? That isn't really how it works usually, is it?
Well, usually if nobody's asking for the death penalty, why does the government care?
Right. That's what I got.
And one of the judges in a dissenting opinion said, This didn't meet the criteria that we usually use in the federal system for the death penalty. This wasn't a
Gotcha.
major drug operation. This was somebody who had no criminal history prior to this. This was somebody who had mental health
Right,
history and
right,
drinking issues. This is not normally the people we put to death.
right.
It may be life in prison, but we don't usually execute them. So Ashcroft,
He wanted that done.
yeah. Now it's 15 years later, 16 years later, and one of the as part of the appeal, they are pointing out that there was only one Native American on the jury, and here's one of the reasons why: there are no courts of this jurisdiction on Indian land, and they're not even near Indian land. They're usually about 100 miles away, and they're saying so jurors don't show up, and then the ones that showed up, they kicked off the jury because they weren't commensurate in English. They were
Right,
more
right,
native
right.
speakers. They were against the death penalty,
Sure.
whatever it was. And it said, except for the court intervening, the prosecution would have eliminated all Native Americans. So there was one Native American who made it onto the jury. So the question is was he ever tried by a jury of his peers? And all the victims have already said, I mean, the victims' families
Right, right.
have said, we're not seeking the death penalty.
Mhm.
The Navajo apparently feel that that's not the appropriate response to taking a life.
But they
It's
don't,
not-
it's against their spiritual and religious
because
beliefs.
it's revenge and that.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to tell you what this judge, the dissenting judge, who said this is not a cool death, this death sentence is not cool. He was 20 years old at the time, had no prior criminal record, does not fit the usual profile of those deemed deserving of execution by the federal government, a penalty typically enforced only in the case of mass murderers and drug overlords who order numerous killings. I rest my case, ladies and gentlemen.
So is he still,
Attorney General Barr has re-implemented the death penalty. It was on hold for a lot of years, but now under the new administration and the new Attorney General, they're going to go to start killing. They got about 18 people lined up
Yeah.
to kill in the next few months.
okay,
All right. All right.
not
So,
good for them.
so I was done. I had prepared. I mean, that was enough. We could have killed the whole show with that. I mean, that one thing about the police misconduct cost was 6 pages. And
I know.
it was 12 pages for me.
I know.
I
you
edited them
shorted
down
it,
so
yeah.
that you, and
Thank
I
you for
couldn't,
doing that.
I couldn't get it below 6 pages.
I just couldn't believe the costs. That it was just overwhelming, and especially considering then they're giving out these deals at the end of millions and millions of dollars, and it could have been settled on at the beginning. The people are saying so. All that money really is just wasted, and well, it's going into the attorney's pockets. Yeah,
Yep. And a lot of those firms are cushy firms, I can promise you.
oh, I'm sure.
A lot of political clout involved.
Mhm.
That's historical. So we're leaving the law behind. And by the way, I posted this to the Richardson Democrats
Okay.
Facebook
This
page.
one?
I don't see any of them listening.
Oh, you mean the thing? Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because you and I are two liberal Democrats.
Yes.
So I thought, hey, and we live here.
Yes.
Yeah. But I also said it's not really a political show. And it doesn't need to be a political. There's so much to cover, social commentary that we are qualified to discuss.
I'm qualified to discuss something. I'm so
Yeah.
impressed with myself.
Well, you're very smart. And you have a lot of life experience.
Well, I do have an MBA.
I just wrote a blog today, which
Oh,
you didn't.
I haven't
read.
read it yet. No,
MBA.
I have a master's in business.
Wow.
You
No
didn't know
wonder.
that?
I knew you had a master's. Why would I think it would be in business?
Why wouldn't you think it would be in business?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
Not because I don't think you're capable.
It sounded that way to
You
me.
seem like more of a earth mother.
Well, I
uh,
am with a brain for business.
So I posted a blog today because I was reminiscing about being a teenager, growing up on the south side of
Mhm.
Chicago, and how fascinated I was by street life.
Mhm.
And I acknowledge this book I read when I was about 9, 10 years old was on the bookshelf. My family had a lot of books, which they say really helps your IQ if you're to be stimulated. We talked
Good.
about that,
I like
right?
that.
So I read this book, Knock on Any Door, by an author called Willard Motley. It's about an Italian guy.
See from Motley Crue.
No.
Oh,
So
is that the juvenile banter they're talking about?
so in the book, he starts out as a young man, Nick Romano, Italian, right? And he gets involved with another bad kid, just friends. The other kid steals a bike and leaves it with him, and they get caught. He gets caught, and he don't say anything. He goes to juvenile
Oh, it
penitentiary as a young boy. There's a whole couple of chapters about life in a penal institution as a juvenile. Then his family moves to Chicago from Denver, Colorado, where the story starts. And the rest of the story takes place on the kind of west side of Chicago, including Skid Row. And his descriptions were so engrossing that when I was old enough, I read the book about 20 times.
Really?
Yeah, I just kept rereading it. And so when I was old enough, I kind of took to the streets. And,
Are you blaming him for this?
No. I'm saying it triggered my
I
fascination.
understand.
And so I would walk the streets as a teenager. First off, I never went home. So where are you going to go? I'm not going to shop on Michigan Avenue, right? I mean, I got no business downtown. I don't know anybody on the north side. I knew the south side. So I would walk, and I would, as I said in my blog, you might be walking, and you used to work in Oak Cliff. I'd be walking around certain areas, and literally you would look to your left and there'd be a fight in the alleyway.
Mhm.
You'd just be walking down the street and there's
Well, that sounds like the hallway at school.
there's two men. Yeah. Well, I went to school. They had a lot of that. Okay. So,
That's weird.
I mean, and I talked about while in one level, I really reasonably was afraid, but compelled.
Right.
Something about the sights, the smells, and sounds of the inner city that are so different from anything else you experience. Right. So in that, I just became enmeshed, and I grew up for years, a number of years, in that inner city culture, and I just described it, and I couldn't do it justice like Willard Motley did. It's funny. The book is about Nick Romano, an Italian boy, and in the end, he's on trial for killing a police officer who's bad Chicago cop. Mm-hmm. And I had a therapist who looked at this and said, "You've been living the lives of all the main characters in the book: the juvenile delinquent, the social worker, and now the lawyer."
Okay, that's a really interesting.
Yeah, he said that's kind of weird. Hey, Todd.
That's quite interesting. What did he gather from this?
Oh, he said this is you could chart your life reading this book.
Okay, should we write a chapter at the end that ends happy and add it to the book?
Yeah, well, the book didn't end so happy.
Okay, well, we'll stop now then.
So, anyways, I hope you'll read the blog. I thought it was. I don't know how to pull out the stories, but the stories linger, and sometimes you're sitting around and you flashback, right?
Right.
Or you're reading something.
That happens to me all the time.
You're reading something and you're like,
especially in bed.
God, I remember when I was a kid and I was doing this and I was doing that, because I'll end up drinking, drugging, and stealing in an area where I was so obvious.
Yeah, I get it.
The police would drive by and they would pull me over and they say, "You know why we stopped you?" And I used to say, "Because I'm white." What else was I supposed to say?
Nothing.
They seem
you
serious.
Say no.
Yeah, when you're 17, you don't know how to say no.
You
I didn't
still
have
don't.
I didn't have
what are you
a lawyer.
talking about? Your mouth still gets you in trouble.
Someday we'll talk about that arrest. All right.
Oh my God.
So this really touched me because this next story it was titled "Lonely Lives: Alarming Number of Seniors Go an Entire Week Without Talking to Anyone." And
all week with no talk.
This struck me because my mother having been in a institution, a care center for approximately 7 months, she had a lot of family around. My sisters were always around. We got grandkids and stuff. I wasn't because I'm here. But whenever I would go to visit her, you would see people. And some people you would see they had a lot of family coming and going.
Right.
Right across the hall next door, there was constantly family coming and going. But some of these people, I never saw anybody visiting them. I'm not running around all the time, but it's still, as I walked through the halls and saw these people, I felt like I hope somebody sees them now. The staff there is really good. This was an upscale joint.
Right.
I've been to other places where you know damn well.
Right, that they didn't care.
And
right.
so here we go. Hundreds of thousands of people. This was done in England. This is not an American study. Yes, of course it's going to translate here. Hundreds of thousands of people often go a week without speaking to a single person. Okay. According to a survey of 1,900 seniors over 65 in the United Kingdom, more than 1 in 5 will have a conversation with no more than just 3 people over the span of an entire week.
And those people could be the people you're talking about in the nursing home or whatever you want to call it. It could be the caregivers, right?
At least the people in nursing home, somebody did talk to them in that nursing home I was at,
right?
Because they brought them out in their wheelchairs, they put them in front of the TV,
right.
And then this person would come out and play games with them.
Right, that was nice. That was nice.
Yeah. So it says that translates to nearly 2.6 million elderly folks who don't enjoy regular human contact on a daily basis. And then the researcher says an alarming 225,000 individuals will go a week without talking to anyone face to face.
That's just crazy to me.
You know, people go nuts.
They have a dog or a cat. Maybe they do.
I mean, if you're old enough, how are you going to walk your dog?
Or maybe have a little backyard. Open dog goes out.
I don't know. I don't know. So they're trying to start a program where people will talk. The survey revealed that 38% of seniors admit to feeling lonely at times as they've aged, with 12%, or about 1 in 8, agreeing that loneliness has kept them from leaving their home.
Can they have adopt an old person thing? Isn't there something like that?
Yeah, they're working on that.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure there's got to be something like that out there, right? Meals on Wheels.
Well, it's not out there. They're trying to start a program. There's people who did this to help in that area where some of this was going on. They've launched a new campaign called Donate Your Words to help cheer up lonely seniors. The campaign encourages people to help fight loneliness by stop and chat with elders in their communities. Because
I like that.
A number of the older people said if they knew their neighbors, if they had human contact, they would be inspired to go out more.
Yeah.
Right. So that's.
I have a little star.
Yeah, what is it?
I have no idea.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Paco. So I don't know. I'm not a voluntary type guy. I did volunteer this weekend. I told you all I would.
Yeah, you did a really nice thing this weekend.
I went to the Expungement Expo.
Right.
That was put on, I think, by the district attorney's office.
I should have been there.
And I sat at a desk, not a desk, I sat at a table. It was crowded. And they just kept bringing people in who had criminal history they wanted removed that they were entitled to have removed.
Right.
And they had been pre-screened. Most of them had been pre-screened. And so people came in.
Who put that on? That's awesome.
It was put on by the courts. I think this guy, John Creuzot, remember that name? District Attorney John Creuzot. I'm voting for him. I don't even know what party he was until Happy told me he's a Democrat. I didn't know that. But he was a judge, and he's the one that started the diversion program here when he was a judge years ago, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's in charge of DA's office, and he's implementing all these cool programs.
That's awesome.
And he was there.
That's so cool.
He's short. He's shorter than me, and I'm short. Yeah. So I went up to him. I introduced myself, and I told him I'm fascinated with what you're doing. I've met some of your lead prosecutors of these divisions. They seem absolutely sincere about the success of these alternative programs. So if I didn't mention it last week, let me mention it now. The most impressive thing I heard was a guy by the name of, Pearson. I don't know. Don't let me.
But it was the most impressive thing he heard.
Yes.
By a guy who he can't remember his name.
Well, he's a prosecutor, and I think he's a career prosecutor.
Okay.
And he's been in a division that evaluates claims of insanity in criminal cases.
Okay.
And what he said 95% of these applications were denied prior to John Crusoe, and 95% are now accepted. What a major seismic shift
Yes.
in the way you address mental health. And so I said to John Crusoe, I said, hey, man, that sounded so good. And he said, well, what is the point of intervening in these people's lives as a criminal matter if you don't get to the underlying mental health issue? Because crazy people are just, they're just going to do it. They're going to keep doing it. I don't know, but I will sign on for whatever he's doing, because his career people, these were the people who headed over the diversion units, alternative units. Not only did they present information at the seminar I was at last week or 2 weeks ago, they not only presented the information, they were actually clearly advocating it.
Right, right.
And
well, the
that's
passion is there, and that's important.
They're actually, they sounded like they believed in these programs, as opposed to, we have this program, and you all need to know, you can go online and you can find out more information. Right. All three of these people, Turnbull, Pearson, and somebody else, just really sound like I believe in what I'm talking to you about.
That's awesome. I love that.
So
how many lawyers are down there helping?
They said there were about 50.
Wow. How many people
came in? It
was
broke up into morning and afternoon. I took an afternoon.
And how many?
They said a couple of hundred.
Oh, okay.
There were 500 signed up, but they didn't all show up.
Oh, that's sad.
The first guy I got walks in with a rap sheet that long, and it hadn't been approved like that. He had been a late comer, so he hadn't been screened like they explained to me. So he's like all ready, and I'm sitting there going, I don't think all this qualifies. And so I had to go. I said, listen, I got to go ask about this. And somebody came in, a prosecutor came in and said, no, we went through this. We get it. Those are the only three that he can get removed. These others are not. And so we took care of it. And then I had 3 other people, but they had small, they were just like 1 or 2 cases.
Right.
I was so happy, because if I had gotten another one, this rap sheets like this, oh my word, I was overwhelmed, because I've never done expungements.
Right.
I'm not done. I still have to file this stuff. So anyways.
You can file mine.
So I'm not I know I can't. I'm not a big volunteer kind of guy in the legal profession.
I'm really proud of you.
I did it. I felt
I
felt good about it.
That's awesome.
And
are they going to do that again soon or anything?
They said next year. So,
okay.
So I'm going into the prosecutors. Listen, I'm going to cop a plea, right? So I get the first guy, and I'm like, all right, hold on, time out. I'll be right back. I go in, it's a room full of prosecutors, right? And I'm like, yo, so they're trying to help me out. They're looking up. I'm sitting there chatting, right? And I'm like, I've been in AA for 12 years myself. I can't tell you how many people ask me for an expungement on a weekly basis. Can you imagine being in AA meetings all the time? Can you imagine how many people come up to me and they're like, they're
laughing. They're like, what is it? Who is this dude?
So then I go out, come back, and I'm I come back, and the lead lady, I'm sitting there talking with her. She's got people helping me, and I say, I wish we had something like this in Illinois, because the rule in Illinois is my stuff is locked in permanently. Because in Illinois, if you have an expungible record, but you subsequently are convicted of something, it locks in even the expungible stuff.
Oh.
So my whole record was locked in when I was convicted of a case.
Sure.
Had I already expunged my records,
then it would have been okay.
That would have dropped off. But here apparently, no, if the statute of limitations. Anyways, I know the law on expungement now. Don't call me.
Good. I'm so happy. I'm so happy you do, Ken.
But what was I? Oh,
I'm so happy you do, Ken.
So listen to the lady. So the lady that organized thing, she sees me and she's like, so how was it? I said, I got through it. She said, well, I'm keeping you on the list for next year. That's what I wanted to tell you. I don't know how I got.
Oh, that was
went strolling down. I said, well, I'm not really a volunteer type of guy. She said, really? She said, because you were the first one after I spoke. You ran up to me and you like, here's my card, sign me up. And I said, yeah, I did do that. I can't explain it.
The good guy came out. Every once in a while, the Buddha.
Well, you know what?
Revealed.
It's the idea that people have something that could be corrected in the law, and this was a unique moment. Like the first guy that had the rap sheet, and he got upset.
Right.
Well, why do they do this? Why then? I said, listen, man. Under normal circumstances, what you'd have to do on each one of these cases, these 3 cases, you'd have to get a lawyer. You'd have to file these papers. You'd have to go to the prosecutor and see if you could get them to sign off on it. Then you'd have to go to court. It would cost you money, time. What happened here today is everybody agreed in advance that you could get these 3 things. If you have other cases that you want to deal with, they're not telling you that you can't do something like about his juvenile record. They're not telling you. They're telling you they're not doing it. That's not within the parameters of this deal today. You got a free lawyer.
But I thought juvenile records were sealed.
Well, they sort of are. And that's why the prosecutors that were there on Saturday said, listen, we don't even have access to your juvenile records. But by the nature of his juvenile record, it could come up. So what he has to do is he has to go in and seal it. And he probably would get it sealed. But he's going to have to go to that court of jurisdiction because the prosecutors we were with don't work in that area.
Interesting.
Okay. So what this was, the clerk of the court, the prosecutors, and then all these volunteer attorneys really got together and helped hundreds of people clear things. Like some of the people that came to me had only one case. They were entitled to expungement. So from now on, when they apply for a job, they'll be able to say, when asked, have you ever been arrested or whatever, any question about it, this case will be eliminated from their history. Because
that'd be nice. That'd be so nice.
She keeps volunteering to be my next victim. All right, so it's the end of the show.
I'll give you a 5-star rating on Yelp.
Yeah, I need more people to ask me to do free legal work.
Well, Yelp wouldn't be free.
What is it going to do?
People are going to call you and you're going to charge them.
Yeah, very few people can afford me.
Meals
on Wheels lists funding and costs of vetting even volunteers as the elderly are extremely vulnerable. So,
well, my mom, when she was alive, went to volunteer for Meals on Wheels, her and all her friends, and they were older, and they showed up down there for this Meals on Wheels meeting, and they told them that they weren't allowed to have their fingernails painted. They weren't allowed to wear perfume. They weren't allowed to wear makeup when they went to these. And all these are North Dallas women. These North Dallas women. Why so many I don't know. Because my mom came home and said, well, we're not doing that. Now, this could have changed. This was a long time ago. But it was just very odd to me.
Yeah, well, women couldn't wear pantsuits in court.
It was like weird.
Back in the 80s. So
very weird.
Well, people try to feed the homeless. We talked about it on the show. The fact that in Tucson and Dallas and other cities, they'll say you can't give away food to the homeless. You need a permit. Well, I don't have enough money to pay you to give me a permit so I can go give away food.
Well, some of the churches do that, don't they?
Yes.
I think they do, yeah. So they have enough
try
money.
To stop them. No, a lot of times they try to stop them.
I didn't realize this.
They want to, first off, you've got to have your kitchen inspected, make sure it's up to commercial quality.
Okay.
Then you're supposed to apply for a permit
like a food truck?
And pay for a one-time event.
Couldn't it be like a food truck?
Well, you'd have to have it licensed. You'd be paying licensing fees.
Oh, I see.
I'm going to go to the park. I'm going to be paying.
So you have to sort of do it behind the police back and throw the food out as you're running by the homeless.
Well, it's almost like that. And so ostensibly, the argument is they're protecting the health, safety, and welfare of homeless people. So they're
telling you to give to the shelters too, and I understand that.
No, that's not what they're telling.
Yes, they are.
No,
I choose to believe that.
Okay. So
well, that's what I would do. I'd give to the shelters and not to the. Well, no, I wouldn't. I'd just go down and give away free food and not worry about it.
So here, you want to cure the problem of liability, right? I mean, you're supposed to have the food's supposed to have been inspected. You're supposed to have commercial kitchen. Somebody's got to be licensed to prepare food, all this stuff. How about just a sign that goes on the truck or vehicle that brings the food that says this was not prepared in a commercial kitchen. Eat it at your own risk. Simple.
Okay.
Now you eat it, you get sick. You say, well, did you read the sign? I told you to read the sign.
I don't think they're going to go for that.
When I handed you the food. It's that simple.
I know it's that simple, but I don't think they're going to go for that. I think it's too simple. They're not going to go for that.
I want to meet the homeless person that goes, no. I don't want this. I want one that was prepared in a properly licensed facility under the supervision of a food preparer pursuant to Dallas County rules and regulations of food preparation.
Okay.
All right. So, two liberal Democrats getting ready to sign off, but first you need to know a little something about us as we leave. The Cosmic Yogi Festival is coming up.
November 2nd.
And while she's been saying I'll be there, I just realized I'll be in San Francisco.
It's okay. We'll find another interesting person to do meditation. You'll be there in spring.
You know, wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody should do meditation if it's not me.
Yeah, but too bad. You're not going to be here, but you'll be there in spring.
Cosmic Yogi Festival. It's going to be November 2nd. It's going to be at the Addison Convention Center. All right, that's number one. Number two, you want to flip your house.
Go.
Call the MBA. Don't call the lawyer. Call the MBA.
And go to DallasYogaMagazine.com. Lots of interesting articles, all the trends in the yoga and fitness industry. Awesome.
Yeah, and you have access to my blog, this show, and other tidbits like Stacia loaded up all my old TV shows from when I was interviewed in Chicago and some, I guess, in Dallas. So that's at law-disorder.com.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Law-disorder.com.
Tell your friends to check out a recording of this if you had fun. I don't know that the show's intended to be fun. It's supposed to be entertaining.
There we go.
Yeah. So at 7:05, you deserve to move on to whatever it was you were doing before we got here. But
or maybe something better.
Well, wait a second. Two things we forgot to announce. One, I teach meditation on Wednesday nights at the Buddhist Temple here in Dallas, 8044 Stoltz Road. Every Wednesday night, unless I'm out of town, I'm at the temple teaching meditation 7 p.m.
It's awesome.
You don't have to be Buddhist. You don't have to know anything about meditation to participate. There's always new people.
Come observe. It's quite interesting.
If you're new, you'll never be alone. You'll never be the only new person.
No.
I've never had only.
And the place is packed. I mean, there's a lot of
person.
people in there.
Well, it hasn't been packed lately.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right.
Maybe
and then
promote it more.
The other thing I was going to say is,
I don't know.
Oh man, I hate this.
Did you have a senior moment?
Oh my God.
Do you suffer from CRS?
I went to went to a yoga class.
Oh yes.
It was my second yoga class.
He did much better.
Not only did I go, I bought a 5
I
class.
know. He's going to become a yogi,
pack.
Not just a meditation Buddhist, but a yogi.
Now, in my own defense, I laid down through about half the class.
No, he's exaggerating. Okay, well,
all right, maybe a quarter of it, because it was too hard. But I just wanted y'all to know I'm a yogi, upcoming yogi.
Yes, he is. He did much better this time. At least you were attempting. I was proud of you.
So Kathy says we were entertaining and informative, but she would always say something nice about us.
Yes, she would.
So I'm signing off.
I'm speaking at Legacy Saturday night, 7:30.
I don't even know what Legacy is.
Well, I'll give you directions.
Saturday night. What am I doing?
I don't know. You're coming to listen to me.
I'm sure I'm busy.
I'm sure you're coming to listen to me.
Oh my God.
And then we go to dinner after.
So listen, we are self-identified as liberals. We did not throw the conservatives under the bus today. Maybe next week.
I'm proud of you, actually.
My restraint?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm very proud. I maintain all the time, at least on air.
Peace out.
Peace out. Have a great day. See you next week. See you next Tuesday, 6 o'clock. And
it ends.
I don't know what that little thing was. That was funny, huh?
My baby is red hot.
I have to tinkle.
We're still live.
Well, they're going to know I have to tinkle.
God.